Hello, everyone. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you're from, I see 39 attendees right now. Well, 40, it's still going up. So I think we are going to start. But yeah, I wanted to start this off with just a little icebreaker. Do we have, I am seeing a lot of like Filipino surnames, right? So can you raise your hand if you're from the Philippines? Oh, there you go. Wow. There's a lot of people from the Philippines. Good morning. It is 9:48 a.m. here. I'm also from the Philippines, obviously. My name's Isa, by the way. Yeah, there you go. A lot of you from the Philippines. Anyone from India? From India, raise your hand. There you go. Manisha, I see you. Oh, just a couple. Hello. Thank you for being here and joining us. From the US, Ali's gonna raise her hand. There you go. So we have people from the Philippines, the US, and India here. From other countries, do we have anyone from other countries? Maybe you can let us know where you're from. Oh, there are still people raising their hands. So, yeah, wherever you're from all over the world, thank you so much for being here and making the time. My name is Isa. So, I'm the Community Outreach Manager of Breaking Silence Movement. And today, this panel rather, we are going to be talking about navigating trauma, cultural insights into GBV's psychological impact of Indian and Filipino women. 42 attendees right now. Thank you so much. It's still going up, I guess, for those who will um, be joining. They'll be able to follow anyway. So, yeah, tell your friends if you have any other friends, family members, loved ones who'd want to join in the conversation. Go on ahead and let them know. But yeah, we are going to be tackling a lot today. This is a CSW 69 Breaking Silence Hibiscus Foundation Mental Health Hour panel. And I'm so excited to introduce our panelists for today. But before that, of course, we are doing this because the psychological impact of gender based violence on women is deeply intertwined with cultural, historical, and societal factors. I'm sure that if you're here, you already know a little bit of how that's like. And this panel will specifically focus on Indian and Filipino women, exploring how colonization and cultural norms influence societal attitudes and survivors' access to mental health support, which I'm sure that a lot of you are experiencing as well, either lack of resources or just lack of awareness on how to really access those resources. And of course, there's stigma, there's trauma related disorders, and also systemic challenges that we are going to be discussing today with the help of our panelists. And we will be incorporating survivor centered perspectives, and our panelists will be sharing, culturally sensitive mental health strategies and frameworks for empowerment, which I'm sure that we're going to learn a lot today. So, our objectives, just some of our objectives, because of course we have a lot, we will be exploring how cultural beliefs and practices in Indian and Filipino communities shape the psychological experiences of GBV survivors. And we will be focusing on stigma, coping mechanisms, and access to support. And I'm actually excited for this because although we do know, right, in the Philippines how it's like and the stigma here that comes with being a GBV survivor, in India, there's so many other things that we need to take into consideration because it's not just what we know here in the Philippines, but there's also a lot of other things like there's infanticide, right? And uh, so many other things that we can't wait for Akshay and Rasika to actually talk to us about and share with us. And also, we'll be talking about the barriers, interventions, best practices, and a lot of other things. So, with this, I guess we are going to be starting by meeting our panelists for today. Okay, so I'm excited to introduce our panel. We will be starting off with our first panelist. She is from Mental Health Hour, Manila. She's a licensed psychologist, psychometrician, teacher, and advocate with a passion for spirituality, community outreach, and empowering others through mental health support. She holds a BS and MA in psychology with a specialization in counseling psychology from the Adventist University of the Philippines. and currently pursuing her PhD in the field. She's a certified emotional life coach, trauma counselor, and forgiveness life coach, co founding president of Mental Health Hour Manila, an NGO offering free listening sessions. She's also a certified compassion fatigue educator and EMDR practitioner. Her work spans undeserved communities, including indigenous groups in Palawan and Quezon, women and children affected by abuse, and drug rehabilitation programs in Pasay City. And as a resilience coach at Solace Asia, she employs therapeutic modalities such as CBT, gestalt therapy, and solution focused brief therapy to inspire healing and transformation. Our first panelist for today is the founder of Mental Health Hour Manila, Ariane Alvarez. Virtual round of applause, everyone.
Yes, hello, good morning to all of you here from the Philippines and from India, and good evening to all of you who are watching from USA. Thank you, Miss Isa, for the introduction. I'm very excited to be sharing together with our diverse experiences and stories of strength from India and the Western culture from US. So thank you for having us here, especially from Filipino psychology. Thank you po.
Thank you, Miss Arian. I'm so excited to learn from you today. Of course, I cannot wait for you to talk about the current status of the Philippines, not only when it comes to GBV, but also mental health. So we'll go into that later on. But for now, let's move on to our next panelist. She is a mental health advocate, a mental health professional, and a social entrepreneur. She's the founder and managing director of Hibiscus Foundation for Social Welfare, a nonprofit advancing mental health and gender equality. She leads House of Hibiscus, which includes Hibiscus Connect, Hibiscus Counseling, and Hibiscus Foundation. She has contributed to global efforts with the UN OHCHR, the WHO, and their world. And she is a TEDx speaker and has impacted over 200,000 individuals worldwide through her initiative. Let us give a huge, warm virtual round of applause to the managing director and founder of the Hibiscus Foundation, Akshaya Akilan. Hi, Miss Akshaya. Do you have
Hi.
some welcoming words to our attendees today? Also, because I have to charge my laptop.
Well, I'm very, very excited to be here and to, be contributing to this really, really important conversation and hope to bring in the intersectionality this deserves and needs. I hope that was enough time for you to charge your laptop.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for helping me out. But yeah, there you go. That is just our second panelist. Let us move on to our third panelist. Of course, she's none other than the managing director of Breaking Silence Movement. We have with us the executive director of Breaking Silence Movement, a nonprofit organization committed to advocating for gender equality and empowering marginalized voices. She co founded Hiraya Media, which is a digital media platform amplifying Filipino stories, and has a political science and political psychology background from the Arizona State University. And beyond her professional endeavors, she is an avid reader of fiction novels, a dedicated fan of Korean variety shows, and an LP collector, finding inspiration and relaxation in various forms of art and culture. She's also an avid supporter of the Golden State Warriors, Las Vegas Aces, and Tottenham FC. With a strong foundation in nonprofit leadership and grassroots activism, she leads Breaking Silence's global efforts to empower women, children, and the LGBTQIA plus individuals across Southeast Asian, and Middle Eastern communities. Let us all welcome Executive Director of Breaking Silence Movement, Ali Gagalang.
Hi, everyone. I'm very, very excited to have everyone here. Um, I'm so excited to talk about the intersectionality of not only the Filipino Indian cultures and our experiences, but also the intersectionality of mental health and gender-based violence. I'm very excited to have this conversation with everyone. And welcome to our NGO CSW Parallel event.
Thank you so much, Ali, for that warm welcome to everyone here. Our next panelist is a human rights advocate, writer, researcher, and she's also the founder of Imara Support Survivor Support Foundation, dedicated to supporting survivors of sexual and gender based violence. She graduated with honors in psychology from York University, and her passion for human rights, mental health, and social justice has positioned her as an emerging voice in gender equality. Let us all welcome the founder of Imara's Survivor Support Foundation, Rasika Sundaram.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's truly an honor to be here, and I'm very excited to learn so much today from all of you.
Yeah, that's how it's gonna be, I guess, right? Panelists will be learning from the attendees. Attendees will be learning from the panelists. Why not? And finally, for our last panelist for today, she's also from Mental Health Hour Manila, a compassionate and dedicated professional. She is an OSHA physician and wellness program director at Manila Plastics Products, a counselor, trauma therapist, and faculty member at Philippine Cultural College. And as the founder and program director of A to Z Wellness Foundation and Institute, with initiatives spanning the USA and the Philippines, she also leads wellness programs as an integrative health practitioner, an integrative rather health practitioner and holistic transformation coach with Wellness Corner LLC in New Mexico, California, and Texas. Driven by a mission to inspire transformation and foster healing, she has conducted workshops in prisons, supported the education and well-being of prisoners' families, and championed scholarships and livelihood projects, empowering individuals to transcend societal labels and embrace their unique gifts for brighter futures. Let's welcome from Mental Health Hour Manila and also a GBV survivor, Dr. Pauline Kimson.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here with everyone. Again, excited to hear from everyone's voices and to share my own voice. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you so much to all our panelists for that warm welcome. We have a total of 51 attendees right now. To our attendees, of course, I'm pretty sure that you are going to have questions throughout our panel. So if you have any questions, kindly note them down. And later on, we will be, well, actually, you can put it on the chat as well if you're comfortable doing that. But later on, we'll be giving you a QR code for those who want to be anonymous, to anonymously send their questions. Okay. We have a lot to tackle. So again, if you have any questions, just keep them with you, note them down, and we'll do a Q&A later on at the end of the panel. All right. So are we ready for round one? Okay. So for round one of this panel, we will be talking about the problem, GBV, its scope and impact. All right. We'll start off with Ariane. Okay. So, Ariane, we'll talk about the Philippines first. So, in the Philippines, how do cultural norms and societal attitudes toward mental health intersect with the challenges that are faced by GBV survivors?
That's a really great question. Here in the Philippines, we are currently experiencing that every one in every six Filipino women are experiencing physical, sexual, emotional violence from their intimate partners. And recently in the country, we are celebrating every March and every November is a VAUSI month where we campaign for anti-violence against women and children. And currently, right now, I'm helping in the barangay health centers or community health clinics of Quezon City here in Metro Manila, Philippines, where we are giving free care support for every woman who would like to um, ask for their mental health support or coping, and also for this cases that can be filed against their partners. So here, let's talk about this very important how culture can shape the societal attitudes of every Filipino women in the Philippines. So, Filipino culture, from traditions and families, we are a Christian country. Um, a Catholic traditional way of living since our childhood and up. So there's a lot that really influences our struggles. Example, what we call the hiya or shame. It is the fear of stigma. It is the intense fear of being embarrassed or being judged by other peoples. And so survivors will get afraid of really sharing their experiences or going to the public when and let their voices be heard when they have this thought in their mind. Oh, my family will confront shame if I will really tell something about like this about my partner or about my parents or about my relatives. Mostly the victims were um having abuses from their own circle or from their relatives or family. So that fear of stigma really stops them or prevents them from coming into the open. So also what we call the pakikisama or keeping the peace. Oh, I will just protect my peace. I will not anymore speak out for myself until until it gets worse. So many women right now really see this when you will be the one who will tell something about these negative things about your family, then you will really be called the black sheep in the family. Also we have here in the Philippines what we call the debt of gratitude or the utang na loob. Hey, you are now doing this to your partner, or you're now doing this to your parents or relatives, and it's like that you do not have depth of gratitude for them. Why you are filing cases for them, or why you are really um telling to the public that they have this thing. So also we have here um the machismo, because here in the Philippines we are headed by really paternal fathers, like um the masculinity. Okay, and there is also a culture that we know that, oh, ang babae, the women are only for household chores only. Yeah, there can never be a woman who can be superior in the family, or who can lead in the society. So also there is a toxic masculinity. So we want men um to really be seen as respectable. So yeah. And also the um what we also call the sometimes the toxic positivity of many Filipino can sometimes not be healthy, no, when regarding to their to this um experiences. So many of the Filipinos like will say, oh, kaya mo yan, you can do it, let's just pray for it, it will it will soon subside. So these are the cultural barriers that we incorporated in our experiences, and our maybe distorted or thought about it really affects how we really seek for help whenever we experience this violence. And we know that this can really be not healthy, and we really need to debunk this as a community of mental health advocates.
Thank you for that, Miss Ariane. Actually, what I'm one of the things that I'm seeing also here in the Philippines now is the blame goes first to the women, especially even if you survive whatever you went through GBV. There's also that other barrier, which is what people will think and what people will say, and it's almost automatic here in the Philippines, which is sad to hear. But yeah, you covered a lot of why or what the societal attitudes are towards mental health when it comes to GBV survivors. So now we are going to move to India. So Akshaya, this question is for you. How do societal influences and cultural stigma in India impact both the mental health of GBV survivors and their willingness to seek support?
Well, thank you for the question. So, first off, I would like to apologize for all the sneezing I've been doing. I think I'm quickly catching an allergy, but that's all right. That's an everyday thing. So I will begin by talking a little bit about what Hibiscus does, as an organization uh, with women or survivors of gender-based violence, right? And what we do is one of the main things that we believe is that mental health, legal support, and financial independence are a very key, three very key factors to breaking the cycle itself of gender-based violence. So now survivors very often face emotional trauma, financial barriers, a lot of legal complications. Even accessing any of these things is a very big step for them, right? So we provide therapy to people who've gone through gender-based violence, women who don't have financial independence, girls, and very often they don't even know that they can access legal support or what is happening to them is wrong. So when we do come across such situations, what we then do is we have a human rights consultation team who sort of take on a session with them to make them understand, hey, these are all the rights that you have, and these are all the things that you can do about it. Whether or not they choose to do it, we still choose to support them through whatever kind of aid that they would require through this process, right? So we do believe that a long-term variation of empowerment is really required for it. But to specifically talk about India, in the in this particular specific context with socio-cultural lens, we do see a lot of honor-based questions, very similar to what I just heard from from Manila Manila Aryan. So thank you so much for highlighting it, because it sort of really brings to light how it is such a universally felt emotion, right? There is so much shame around it, there is so much victim blaming, there is so much honor in the question, so much so that in India, honor killing is a very normal thing. And when I tell people that, in urban settings, they're like, what do you mean? It's in history textbooks, it's happened like so long ago. And I find myself sitting down and explaining to them, just because you are not seeing it on an everyday basis doesn't mean it's not happening on an everyday basis, right? So before this meeting, before this event, I just took a minute to Google, hey, hey Google, what is the news on honor killing in India in the last 24 hours? And to my surprise, to be honest, I was surprised being in the field that just in the last 24 hours, I came across three or four different honor killings that happened just in the last 24 hours, right? So, which spanned from across Uttar Pradesh to Gujarat to even Noida as recently as a few hours ago, right? So, to think something that close to the capital city of India is, this is the situation there, it really goes to speak how unaware general public can really be on the difficulties women have been facing and going through. And I think the mental health impact itself, if I want to talk about the various patterns of things, that I have seen gender-based violence survivors to have experienced, it includes PTSD, various kinds of depression, anxiety, definitely a whole lot of guilt-induced suicidal ideations, or even shame-induced suicidal ideations, or even otherwise. And I think the cultural narrative again sort of goes back to the family pressure, the reputation of the person, what will people say? There are many languages in India, and there is many translations to what will people say in all of these languages that I can think of, that culturally go back to every single variation of this. And again, like, there is so much social exclusion that comes with it, the repercussions of what happens when there is reporting, right? And just to highlight that even the honor killings I spoke about were the reported ones. There are so many ones that go unreported. And again, I think people very often forget that when they read statistics of whatever they're looking at, it is again the ones that are reported, right? And there is so many more statistics that we are not even privy to, because one, there is not enough data anywhere, and second, when there is, it is based on whoever was, whoever chose to actually go ahead and report it. And that comes with a lot of courage, some level of, bravery, and that's not a privilege for everyone. So some barriers is obviously like to seek support, not even like to report it, like to even come to therapy or even like take a legal consultation, is definitely fear of social backlash, an intense distrust in the legal system, in the medical system, a lot of financial dependence that they're that they're really like struggling with, and lack of accessibility to mental health care itself sometimes, because they don't know that it's there, and that itself limits accessibility, right? And to find affordable spaces, and if they don't know that people like us provide pro bono sessions, pro bono legal consultations, then that's again a difficulty that comes up. So I do recommend, like, I mean, the things that we need to be working toward is policy reforms, sensitizing the healthcare system, especially the law enforcement system, who are so, oblivious to a lot of things that have been happening. Community-based education, strengthening like the support of networks that these people have. Like, the survivors need their own peer support network, because they need to know that they're not alone in this, right? And also, I think survivor-based, lived experience-based advocacy needs to be at the center of all of this. And yeah, so that's a quick gist, and I hope that sort of answers the question that you've asked as well.
Actually, I did want to ask because, well, there are a lot of us here who are from the Philippines who are familiar with honor killings, but we're not entirely sure what it is and what it's about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. So, it's a sort of, if I have to give you like the traditional definition, it's essentially having murdering someone because they have either experienced or done something, or there is some sort of guilt or shame placed on them, because either they have fallen in love with someone that their family won't approve of, or they have experienced some sort of gender-based violence that their family does not want to be associated with. So very, very often it is murder of a woman, a female in the family, by a male in the family. And this is to protect the name of the family or the prestige of the family, right? So even if it's not violence that this person has gone through, and if it is just that they are in love with someone that their family does not want them to engage with, uh, it still ends up being the women that kind of literally gets murdered in the family, because the family is not happy with the decisions that she's made, because she's not allowed to make those decisions, and they would rather have her dead than have her make her own decisions and live her life the way that she wants to live, right? So yeah, it's a very sad reality of situation that is very persistent across India even now, and it's not in the history.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And you were just mentioning how many of them just in the last 24 hours, which is very, very alarming. But I did like that you mentioned about education and how that is part of your advocacy as well. Because, listening to you and Ariane when you were talking about how, of course, we lose GBV survivors typically lose their identity and also their self confidence. And it's so important to just keep reminding them of, that they don't deserve what they're going through because some women end up thinking that maybe I deserve this, maybe this is what's meant to happen to me, but it's not, and education is a very, very important part of that. Yeah, so thank you, Akshaya, for that. Let's move on to our next panelist, Doc Pauline. This question is for you. How can you share your journey navigating societal expectations and stigma as a GBV survivor yourself, and here specifically in the Philippines, and how it shaped your mental health recovery?
Yes, thank you for giving me a voice to be able to share my experiences. What I can tell you is, even if I'm trained as a psychologist, even if I'm a medical doctor, and I have many accomplishments, it doesn't change the fact that when it is happening to you, you feel first so helpless that you feel like there's no way out. You don't really realize, like in my mind, I know because I studied these things, but when you're in it, it's still not easy to voice it out because whatever I was ingrained with growing up, like what Arian has shared, you're supposed to stay quiet. You're supposed to protect the ones that you love. And again, there's a lot of guilt and shame. However, even if those were my initial experiences, and even if I did struggle with um, many things such as depression, anxiety, suicidal ideas, and all that, Um, it was really the people that loved me and were able to see me as who I was, as a bright shining woman, an empowered person, that helped me to wake up from that and really remember who I am. It was one of my best friends from grade school. Um, I hadn't seen her in a long time, and then when she found out what happened, she told me, "Pauline, don't you remember who you are? You're a psychologist, you're a medical doctor, you're a very accomplished person, but you forgot all of that because you've been put in this place of you're not good enough, you don't mean anything, you don't matter, what you say doesn't is not important, and all the words, it kind of enters you and you think that is who you are. But then when there are people like that help you to suddenly snap out of it, even if it's difficult to take the initial steps, what I realized is once I did take the initial steps and ask for help and started sharing my experience with those that I trusted, those who would support me, because that's the difference. When you share and then those people don't support you, and then they tell you furthermore to just be silent, to just take it all in and sacrifice, then even more so you don't want to share. But finally, if there is that one person that was there for you, you suddenly feel able to talk. And then the other thing is, what I've realized is the aspect of just forgive them and everything's going to be fine. And I also realized the importance of that. And at the same time, I learned that with that compassion, it comes with forgiving myself, giving compassion to myself. That at that point, even if it took me years and years, I couldn't have changed it at that moment because I myself was needing the strength in myself to come out. So to forgive myself and have compassion for myself allowed me to then look back and have peacefulness in my heart, to know that I was doing the best that I can with all that I knew, with what I could emotionally handle, and with what I'm able to share based on feeling whether I can trust the people around me or not. And then also realizing that with that compassion and forgiveness for the others, also comes the enforcing of gentle and loving boundaries. That forgiving someone doesn't mean allowing them to keep doing what they were doing before. Forgiveness comes with, okay, now I will have these boundaries. This is okay. This is not okay. This is safe. This is unsafe. So having that allowed me to uh, intersect growing up as a Catholic, where it's all about forgiveness and then guilt and shame. I mean, not it's all about. There's love also and compassion, but the ingrained one, the one that's ingrained for you to just be quiet and to forgive. I learned that yes, it's okay to forgive and have compassion for myself and for the other persons. At the same time, having the boundaries and then not letting them into my life in the way they were there before, and that is okay because I am protecting my life and my person so that I can continue and move forward. That it is okay. It is okay to allow some people in and to allow some people out. And that's what I've been able to share with others when we were working also with survivors, because most of us, we we have become ostracized from the family. Like it's better for us not to be seen, not to be heard. So we just have to live far away. I mean, in fact, I lived across the world from the people that have hurt me before. But I have found a way now to reintegrate myself with my family, with the people in my life that have hurt me before, and also to speak in a way that is gentle with the truth, but not in the sense of blaming, more in the sense of informing so that others may be protected as well. And so others can also speak out because that is the most important when each and every person feels that they can be heard, someone is listening, then they can speak. Just like me, for most of my life, I didn't have a voice. I was told not to speak and not to have a voice, but now I do. And so this voice is able to be shared, like in this um, event, which I'm so grateful for, that we are bridging the different cultures and from different countries, because the more people understand what we go through and the support that we need, then we can help each other, support each other, not always say, then you should do this and do that, but simply have a listening heart that is open to accept and receive. So I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Doc Pauline. One of my takeaways there, actually, I love how you mentioned. I was just thinking that most of us GBV survivors usually identify with what we went through, but we forget who we are deep inside. And it's great to be reminded that for sure, because that's when you start not identifying with that and really finding and discovering yourself. And aside from that, you also mentioned the support system, which is so important. And well, a lot of us stop ourselves from getting support because again of guilt and shame. And I love that there are places, organizations such as Breaking Silence, Hibiscus, Imara Survivor Support Foundation that provide these resources that a lot of people may not know about, but it's there. So that's why it's so important to raise awareness like this. But thank you, Doc Pauline, that was very empowering. um, Next, Rasika, I wanted to ask, in your experience working with GBV survivors in India, what are the most pressing psychological challenges survivors face, and how do societal norms perpetuate these struggles?
Thank you for the question, Isa. So, from my experience working with survivors of GBV, particularly domestic violence survivors, I've seen that stigma, discrimination, and a lack of awareness about mental health play a significant role in the challenges they face. So, in my personal life, I've encountered many survivors from the middle or upper middle income groups who continue to live in abusive households with controlling partners. These survivors aren't happy, their self respect and confidence are repeatedly undermined, and they often exist merely as a shadow of their spouses or partners, with little to no autonomy over major life decisions. Their situations are comparable to trauma bonding, where the psychological hold of the relationship makes it difficult for them to leave. So, when I engage with them and try to understand why they continue to live in these circumstances despite their unhappiness, I often hear responses like, I'm not financially independent. What would I do for money? I can't maintain the same lifestyle I'm currently maintaining if I leave. What will people think of me if I leave the marriage or the relationship? I will be outcasted and people will judge me. And these things happen in a marriage or in a relationship. So these responses reveal a very deep rooted normalization of violence, a fear of judgment and stigma, and financial dependency as major barriers to leaving abusive relationships, and also gives us an idea about the social constructs that society has boxed us in. Through my NGO, I work with survivors who are ready to leave an abusive situation and relationship and begin their healing journey. And interestingly, I've observed that survivors from the lower income groups often feel more confident about taking action. They believe that they can support themselves and the children financially, but their primary challenge lies in navigating the system and accessing support services. So many seek pro bono assistance, but so many service providers who offer free service often fail to respect their human rights. They don't clearly explain the process of recovery or reparation and provide inadequate or even harmful support sometimes. Um, a lot of the times, actually, not just sometimes. As a result, these survivors face not only abuse at home, but also mistreatment from the very systems meant to help them, which leads to further negative psychological impact and trauma. For male survivors, the challenges are even greater. Many struggle to share their experiences due to societal conditioning that teaches them simple things from when they're children, right? Like you shouldn't cry, you must always be strong, dominant, and in control. Vulnerability is a sign of weakness. So these harmful stereotypes and stigma prevent men from acknowledging their trauma or seeking help. In reality, men are still human. It is okay to feel vulnerable, express emotion, seek support. The negative gender expectations imposed on both men and women ultimately harms everyone in society. So it is crucial that we include men in these conversations, create safe spaces for them to share their experiences, and ensure that no one, regardless of gender, has to endure abuse in any form.
Thank you, Rasika. Actually, that blew my mind when you mentioned that a lot of people from the lower income are usually more confident to ask for help, and you can just imagine because in upper and middle income families, that's where societal pressure is the hardest, hits the hardest. So, that's just great to know. I mean, that's a statistic or a fact that we needed to know, to kind of paint a clearer picture of how GBV is and or domestic violence is. And also, thank you for bringing up GBV in men because you're right, right? It's that shame in being man. You have to be strong. You can't cry. You can't do this. You can't. Why are you weaker than woman and all that? That we really need to address because they're also human, as you mentioned. So thank you for bringing that up. Such an important thing to talk about. Ali, for this round, the last question that we have from Breaking Silence Movement's perspective, what are the common themes that you observed in how cultural attitudes in both Indian and Filipino communities influence the psychological toll of GBV?
Yes, thanks, Isa. I feel like a lot of points have already been made all throughout the this round one question, but I do want to summarize and maybe give an in-depth explanation in the context to all of this. At Breaking Silence Movement, we have seen firsthand how cultural attitudes shape not just like gender-based violence or how gender-based violence happens, but also how survivor experience it in a psychological impact. When we look at Indian and Filipino women, there are several key themes emerge, and you've probably heard of it. But like I said, I'm gonna go through it a little bit and more in depth. First is this deep culture of silence in both India and the Philippines. Survivors are often told not to speak because it might bring shame. We've heard of that already. It might bring shame not to the abuser, but to the victim. Um, and their own family. There's this idea that talking about abuse is airing out dirty laundry, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this, but airing out dirty laundry for others to see. Survivors are pressured to stay silent to protect their family's reputation. We've heard of that as well, their marriage, and even their abusers. And what does this do, right? It isolates survivors. It traps them in guilt, shame, and self-blame. It convinces them that they are the problem, and I believe Doc Pauline has talked about this as well, rather than the violence that they've endured. Another theme is the expectation for women to endure. In both cultures, there's this unwritten rule that women should be seen and not heard. Women should be in the kitchen and not anywhere else. We've heard of those. Um, this is especially true when it comes to abuse. Women are often expected to tolerate violence for the sake of family honor, that it's better to suffer in silence than to cause trouble. And, Ariana said this too, you are labeled as the black sheep of the family if you even like, so as to say something about it. Um, what does this do? It delays healing. It deepens the trauma, anxiety, depression, that survivors experience because they're forced to carry that pain alone. Now, why do these beliefs exist? A lot of it traces back to patriarchy, but we also have to talk about colonization, and this is one of the key themes that I do want to talk about as well. In the Philippines, pre-colonization, women held high positions in society, and I'm sure a lot of our Filipino audiences here know this from their history books. But we have this person back in pre-colonial period called the babaylans, or the spiritual leaders, right? They were often women and from indigenous communities had they had more of a balanced roles in society. But when Spain colonized the Philippines, they brought deeply patriarchal systems that placed men in higher positions of power and reduced women to submissive and secondary roles. Similarly, in British colonization in India, right, they reinforced strict gender hierarchies, pushing women further into controlled, restricted roles within the society. These colonial influences are still felt to this day, shaping the laws, tradition, and attitudes that allow GBV to persist. And in the Philippines, I've heard this one as well throughout this round, and I love it so much because we don't talk about it enough. It's the Catholic guilt. Women are taught to sacrifice, to forgive, to endure. Survivors are told, just pray about it. You've experienced this, pray about it. Instead of being encouraged to seek justice and mental health support. Um, in both cultures, talking about mental health struggles is often seen as weakness. That has been mentioned as well. Many survivors hesitate to seek help because they fear being labeled as unstable or too emotional for a lot of women, or crazy, right? We've heard of that as well. You're too crazy, you're too emotional, you're too unstable. And again, there's this mindset that don't air dirty laundry mindset, right? Families don't want outsiders knowing their problems. So survivors are told to just move on instead of getting the mental health support that they need. And on top of that, um, in countries with high poverty rates like India and the Philippines, mental health is often seen as a luxury. People think, why would I prioritize mental health when I'm struggling to put food on the table? Right. That's one of the things that some of us have thought about. The reality is survivors just don't need shelter or legal support. They need trauma-informed mental health care to truly heal. And that brings me to the major issue of government corruption, the poverty and government corruption. Many survivors, especially women, are economically dependent on their abusers. They don't leave, and this has been mentioned as well, because they don't have anywhere to go. No financial independence, as Akshaya has mentioned, and no social safety nets. And when they do seek help, they often find that mental health services are either too expensive, inaccessible, or completely underfunded. Why? Because corrupt government, right? Social welfare services are not prioritized. It's the bottom of the list. Instead of funding crisis centers, shelters, and mental health programs, many leaders are more focused on lining their own pockets. So the cycle continues. Poverty forces women to stay. Corruption prevents meaningful change, and survivors are left with no way out. So when we talk about psychological impact of GBV, we're not just talking about individual trauma. We're talking about systems, institutions that reinforce this silence, stigma, and economic independence. By acknowledging how deeply cultural attitudes make healing incredibly difficult for survivors, we are confronted with these realities, and this is a step towards progress, towards the change. Because at the end of the day, survivors deserve more than just, more than being told to endure, but but they serve to heal and to be heard and to thrive.
Thank you, Ali. I love how you articulated all of that. Obviously, there are still so many issues or barriers to address now, which is why our second round is going to be focusing on that, on solutions and also promising interventions. We're going to do another round of this, and I would like to start with Akshaya. So, Akshaya, speaking of solutions and interventions, what community driven mental health strategies have you found to be most effective in India for empowering GBV survivors to heal and rebuild their lives?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would like to carry over from what Ali was talking about, decolonization. So the concept of India and Philippines being a collectivistic society and how most mental health practices that we are taught are meant for more individualistic societies, people with people that come from spaces where they're required to be not dependent on others, wherein we come from a society that is evolving around or has evolved around having people to either support you or be with you or talk about you, which is also where the shame or the honor or the, what will people say concept comes from, right? So now again, sort of looking at how the approach itself that we look at needs to be a more restorative, collective healing. Yes, like free therapy, that all of us seem to be working toward, peer networks that we seem to be doing are definitely a good stepping stone to sort of say, hey, this is how you can be safe in a judgment-free space and reduce stigma or isolation. So we have hosted many women's tables wherein we have um, women in general, not just survivors, sort of come in. But whatever that crowd may be, a crowd of five, a crowd of 10, a crowd of 50, we have always had survivors be part of it. And conversations around it always comes up because at some point they feel safe enough to bring it up because it is not easy to bring it up in any area or any space, right? To also sort of look at how the whole casteist barrier or even this hierarchy of gender came about, like how Ali mentioned, to sort of look at it and say that is that's a big justification they always give you is that is our culture. And I have to, constantly remind people around me, and I make sure everyone around me also reminds people around them that this is not our culture. This is something that came to be. This is something that was enforced on us to divide us, to keep us colonized. And people keep thinking the word colonization itself only refers to demarcation of boundaries or who is, or, sort of ruling over who. But the whole concept of social cultural colonization has significantly impacted how gender based violence is today and what it was once upon a time. And I would significantly attribute it to the Victorian modesty that once was brought into India from the British. I don't know how many of you are aware of the saris that we wear. There are so many studies, and I can confirm from my ancestry that people would not wear blouses with their saris. That was not part of what we used to call a sari. And right now, it is a very significant aspect of the sari itself, and it came in because at some point people were sexualizing, when I say people, I mean the colonizers were sexualizing what women wore, what women from our heritage wore, and which is why it is the situation it is right now. And to be honest, that sexualization, the the demarcation, all of it sort of really spilled over, right? So I think really reclaiming the indigenous healing practices, advocacy, looking at how we can induct evidence-based therapeutic modalities with indigenous healing is going to make it more accessible to people here. They're not going to look at it and think, okay, why do I have to go into one room with one person and have therapy sessions? Rather than looking at it like, okay, I'm here to have a conversation like I have always had with my grandmother or anyone else that I have sort of grown up with, right? And I think that sort of makes like a very big difference in how we heal things as a society. Sort of also looking at educating children. We have worked with a lot of children where we have taught them what gender roles are. We don't tell them, we treat people equally because that is that is very vague, and we try to take it to a more niche level. Gender roles are imbibed on you. This is what gender roles are told, that told, you are told they are, or these are what different concepts of treating people equally look like, right? So we try to teach children very young, and we've gotten significantly good responses, and sort of because children are more adaptive to learning, they need to be told what things are that much earlier. We also work with university students, and we also try to work with the geriatric population. So these are the different areas that we work with, and these are things that have worked for us on ground when we have worked on these fronts. But I think I really think what I would like to say is healing is not just about surviving the violence. It's also about reclaiming your autonomy, the dignity, the community strength around you, by integrating many aspects like, mental health or legal aid or financial empowerment or something, that really is required by that particular survivor, because everyone also has their own needs, and it's not a one shoe fits all policy. And we are also someone that actively works on the policy front of things. We were, UN Women's Generation Equality Action Coalition commitment makers at some point, and we worked toward making sure that, there was a community of not just the survivors, but also the organizations working on it, because we're all doing the same thing in different fronts. So, we're all, we just have like a different lens to how we're looking at it or what we're doing. But we all need to do this more collectively, more organized. So when Breaking Silence reached out and said, hey, do you want to do this event, there was no second thought. We just had to figure out logistics, but we need to be more collective in our approach to working toward what could look like not just survival, but actually thriving, actually living, authentically, more as yourself. And with that, I'd like to conclude the answer. I hope that really spoke to what you had asked.
I love that so much. Thank you, Akshaya, for everything that you do also with the Hibiscus Foundation. And I loved specifically how you mentioned that this is not our culture, it's something that came to be, because that just means that we're not stuck. We're not supposed to just be stuck here, but it's something that can be changed, which I love that we're doing, education and awareness and all that. And that's what we intend to just keep continuing doing. So thank you, Akshaya, again for that. Ariane, I'd like to move on to the Philippines right now and ask what culturally sensitive approaches to mental health have been the most impactful for GBV survivors in the Philippines, particularly in addressing stigma, based on your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here in the Philippines, we are also kind of relate to what Akshay have said, because indeed, education, lifting each other up is what makes us a community, or what will make us feel I'm not alone in this fight. I'm not alone in this journey of seeking healing and justice for myself. And so yeah, here in the Philippines, we have that pakikiramdam, or that sensitivity and emphatic understanding. Whenever there is someone near in the neighborhood that it can be like near your house. Here in the Philippines, we have really close houses to each other. You can hear the fight inside the houses, the quarrels, and yeah, it's we are not other person to the community where we in. And so whenever there are such things that I hear around me, there is really this um a call in my heart, or it's like something that you would like to, hey, how are you? The power of checking in with your neighbor really works, because this will help them recognize, oh, what you've been experiencing right now isn't normal. It isn't it's not anymore just to also experience violence of emotional or verbal abuse or financial abuse, like from their partners, right? So checking in with the people that you know who may have been experiencing this can really works, like how Doc Pauline shared her story, when that classmate of her really have that giving time and attention to really hey, remember your worth, remember who you are, your dignity as a woman, and your value, your worth can never change just because someone may fail to treat you as as a jewel, right? So yeah, as well as recognizing that this can really start the conversation. Hey, yeah, this is not something that I want to continually happening in me. So when that realization, or when that powerful one-on-one talk starts, there can build an efficacy to the individual. That individual will now have the confidence to talk about their story, and not just be content experiencing the abuse over and over again. So yeah, how about to those children? Children right now have no voices, right? So it's very important that um the parent, especially the moms, or the sisters, the elder sisters, can also give very good education on sexual health, and um and their gender roles in the society, because when they really understand, oh, this is your body, it is not someone authority or ahead of you can touch you, or give any suggestion that you need to do. Okay, you are not in control of any person. Your body is yours, and it is you can have the voice or the right to say no to people when they, yeah, just by educating the children. Right now we are in partnership with the adolescents mental health support. It's a good way to really educate people that, hey, experiencing these things, or um normalizing that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to seek for help. So that, I think what really works here in the Philippines, um and maybe also in your country at India, or any places in the world. So yeah, um as well as really going to the different communities, partnering with different organization, may it be at workplace. We are so happy that there are people asking for psychoeducation in the workplaces, even some partnership with the different faith-based organizations, like different churches are now asking so that we can give education for this. So yeah, this is really what works in our um context right now. Also, I believe trauma informed care, we really need to be um highlighted that, trauma is not a linear concept of healing. There will be relapse, there will be fear, intrusive thoughts, avoidance, hypersensitivity, and different flashbacks. So um helping every person that your words to support these people can somehow trigger them or not. So we need to really be careful as well on how to make a community support group for them, because it's also a great work. And here in the Philippines, we're also partnering with some um beautiful creative healing, with Pauline, movement therapy, and voice therapy. So there also art therapy. There are different modalities that we can really give to our survivors, to so and that recognition that not that they are not anymore victims, but already survivors. So on how you look at them really changes the the that journey of healing together, and also doing life together, because the survivors are not anymore like clients. They are also part of the family that we have now here in mental health R Manila. So yeah, I think that's all. What else? Yeah. Ano pa ba? Okay. Yeah. Also, one question here by, I think, someone asked if we are also empowering the men. Yeah, it's really good to really educate the men. Here in the Philippines, we have what we call the um in partnership of the um of the Women's Month, we have the what we call wait the move, or the Men Opposed to Violence Everywhere. It is a group of men committed to actively eliminating all forms of violence against women or other gender, and they have various chapters across the Philippines. We can also be partnering with them so that we can really create informations and highlight that men can also protect women in this scenarios. So yeah, that's all with me, Miss E.
Thank you, Ariane, for sharing that. Actually, I was smiling throughout your talk because I was just, I felt hopeful, actually. I remember the time when I myself was a GBV survivor, feeling hopeless because I felt like there was nowhere to turn to. And now, when you mentioned all of that, it reminded me of when I read Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. I was wondering, where in the Philippines offers somatic therapy and other ways of just healing. And it's very, very important what you mentioned, the trauma informed healing, which Ali mentioned, Ariane mentioned as well. So that's definitely something that's so important to talk about. And also the importance of community, which you also touched on, and Doc Pauline touched on as well. It's really the community that can, break us kind of free from the box that we've been in as GBV survivors, because it reminds us that we're all human beings. We are interconnected, and you know, um, we're not alone in what we're going through. So thank you for sharing that. Next, I would go to Rasika. Based on your work in India, what advocacy efforts or systemic reforms are urgently needed to better support the mental health of GBV survivors in India?
Over the past decade, India has made progress in recognizing mental health as a very important issue, but there is still so much room for improvement in existing systems and support services. Mental health remains a low priority with limited resources and inadequate funding allocated to mental health care services. We do have the Mental Health Care Act 2017, but many Indian states are yet to implement the necessary legal and administrative frameworks required under the Act. So, for example, each state is mandated to draft and officially notify rules outlining the guidelines for its implementation, something that has not happened in many regions. The Act also requires every state to establish a state mental health care authority to oversee mental health services, ensure legal compliance, register mental health establishments such as hospitals and clinics, and protect patients' rights. And again, something that has not happened in many regions. And in the absence of such authorities, mental health facilities and professionals cannot be formally registered, making it very difficult to regulate quality service and ethical standards practiced by mental health care professionals. So the consequences of the lack of implementation are very clear in the work I do supporting survivors of GBV on a daily basis. We assist survivors by guiding them to the relevant resources, and many reach out seeking pro bono legal aid, medical help, or mental health care support because they can't afford these essential services. So we now refer many survivors to a Hibiscus Foundation because there's a lot of trust in the quality of work they do. And they offer pro bono and sliding scale support. But one of the primary resources that we used to direct survivors to were one stop centers, which are established by the government, designed to provide free support to gender based violence survivors. And every time I followed up with survivors, I had referred to the centers for counseling, legal aid, or police protection. I was met with very disturbing reports. Survivors frequently shared that instead of receiving protection and support, they were pressured into mediation with their abusive spouses. They were told to bring their spouse to the one stop center or police station, work out their differences, and return to their abusive homes, which is horrific, and a very dangerous response to someone seeking safety, right? So this issue extends beyond institutional failures. Even mental health professionals who charge for their services do not offer pro bono counseling, often engage in deeply very problematic practices. I've heard so many survivors, and I myself have experienced first-hand accounts of therapists and psychiatrists dismissing trauma with statements like, why did you go to this place? What else did you expect would happen in this sort of a situation? These things are normal, they happen. Again, like normalization there, right? So these responses highlight a very significant gap in the education and training of mental health professionals in India. Many are not being equipped with the necessary skills to be empathetic, trauma informed, and sensitive when working with GBV survivors. Despite all this, they are still able to practice as mental health professionals because there's an absence of a governing body responsible for licensing and ensuring their competency. So this clearly creates a very vicious cycle and it leaves survivors without adequate support and further traumatizes them by the very systems meant to help them out. So recognizing this urgent need, I'm working through my NGO on developing training modules for mental health professionals to equip them with the knowledge and skills required to support GBV survivors appropriately. Um, my hope with this initiative is that it will eventually lead to trauma-informed education being integrated into standard mental health curriculum across India.
Thank you, Rasika. And again, thank you for everything that you do, you guys in Nimara Survivor Support Foundation. I love that you shed light on that because it's very true that even professionals sometimes fail to be trauma informed. And it's great that you're working towards that now. So we'll move on to Doc Pauline right now. Doc Pauline, which forms of support, whether mental health services or community initiatives, were the most meaningful when it comes to your recovery, and how can these efforts, do you think, be strengthened for others?
Thank you for that question. For my personal journey, what I needed first was to find my boundaries, to find what is safe, what is unsafe. And what helped me initially was to go to um, body work, where they taught you somatic experiencing, where they taught you where is how to feel where is your body and where is another person. Because one of the things is you forget um, what is me and what is other, because it's like somebody owns my body and I've forgotten where is my boundary, where what is safe, what is unsafe. So by when I started feeling that and knowing, oh, there is such a thing as a safe touch, a safe boundary, a safe space, a safe room in my mind, in my heart, in my body, in my physical space, creating that sense of safety for myself, then I could start to reach out to organizations such as the Mental Health Hour Manila. The reason I really loved this organization is because they know how to listen. When even the first time we all met in person, and so many of us who were volunteers, actually all were survivors ourselves. And in that safe space, we were able to actually share our stories without someone judging or telling us what to do, say or not say, but simply to listen. And I realized then and there that many times it is not the therapy or the treatment that is needed the most, especially in the beginning of the survivor, such as myself. It is someone, such as my best friend, who remembered me at my most brilliant or my most joyful or most empowered state as a person that she remembered, which helped me remember who I am. And from there, in safe spaces, in safe groups, in safe, it could be one-on-one, it could be a small group. It took me a while to be able to share in a big group or even like this with so many people. But it happened one step at a time. It happened little by little until I realized that There's so many places, there's so many people that want to support. It was just getting myself ready to accept that help because I knew finally, oh, there is safety. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to speak out. Someone will listen to me and they will not judge me. But instead of silencing me, which I've experienced majority before, now it's like, no, they will listen to me. It is okay to speak out because by speaking out and sharing my story now to many different groups that are experiencing the same thing that I've experienced in many different forms, um, to let them know that it's okay. It's okay to be not okay. Then it's okay to ask for help. Then it's okay also to get better because that's the other thing. You feel like you have to suffer, but you don't. Eventually, you'll realize that, oh, I'm so expert in that already, in suffering. Now, if I could be expert in suffering, I could also be expert in not just surviving, but in thriving a life that is full, to really recognize that there are many options and I can still begin a new life today, no matter how late it is. It is still beginning today, in this moment now. So I'm so grateful for many organizations here, heads of organizations for women, for men, for people who are in need of support because by us coming all together and informing others, sharing our stories, then maybe we'll save one more life in this moment, in this minute, in this hour, in this day, in this week, in this month. Then it's all worth it. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doc Pauline, for that. Again, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who went through the same thing that you went through are very hopeful after hearing that. And I think my takeaway from that is that, we're not our experiences and we can continue rebuilding and reinventing ourselves, especially with the help of community, which is, again, very important. So thank you for all you do in Mental Health Hour Manila. Ali, last one for this round. How does Breaking Silence movement plan to amplify culturally nuanced interventions for GBV survivors by collaborating with organizations such as Hibiscus Foundation, Mental Health Hour Manila, and Imara's Survivor Support Foundation?
Absolutely, yes. And as you know, as a community outreach manager of Breaking Silence Movement, right, we are trying to implement a lot of trauma-informed care. This has been mentioned as well. But as an international organization and an organization that is based in the United States, where there's a diverse group of people, diverse group of ethnicities, communities, right? Breaking Silence movement knows that GBV is not a one size fits all. This is also mentioned by Akshaya. Survivors just need generic solutions, throw them whatever, right? And they'll, not everyone could relate to everything, right? So that's why it's not a one size fit solution. They need culturally nuanced approach that acknowledge their lived experiences and the unique challenges of their communities and the systemic barriers that we have talked about previously. That's why collaboration is so critical. We've mentioned it so much, the community, right? That's very important to us. As I feel like it's such an it's such an Asian thing to be like, oh, we love our community, we thrive in communities instead of like individuals, or like as an individuals, because we don't believe in working in isolation. I think about it in a when you're raising a kid, right? It always takes a village, right? And that's always us, right? I know probably other culture always says that, but in my experience, I'm an only child of a single mother, and I was raised by my family, my community, and my village. But our partnership with Hibiscus Foundation as well, and Mental Health Hour Manila and Imara right now, survivor support. This is just the beginning. This collaboration brings together mental health experts, and survivor-centered GBV advocacy, ensuring that our discussions, especially right now, and interventions reflect both cultural realities and trauma-informed care. But I also do want to mention as well, and I don't know if I mentioned it on other platforms as well, but our research team is the core of our all of our initiatives. I say that as our head of research here. It is um that is our core at Breaking Silence Movement. We have an initiative at Breaking Silence Movement called the Hope Hub, which Isa also heads, where we welcome GBV survivors and allies. The Hope Hub's objective is to be a central resources for GBV survivors anywhere in the world, the United States, the Philippines, India, whatever, through research-backed interventions and capacity building programs so that survivors are given tools to live and thrive. Right. We also want to, sorry. We also want to work, and we are working with different individuals and organizations, mental health professionals, survivor advocates, researchers, and legal experts to bring a more nuanced approach to how we support survivors. One of the key initiatives that we're doing with our research program as well is that we have a list or a directory of different mental health experts, say for example, like for South Asians, for Southeast Asians, for for Black people, for the Black community, for the white community. And so that's what we're working at as well, so that it's a more nuanced approach to trauma care, right? And then looking ahead, our vision is to expand these collaborations. Obviously, we want to continue working with Mental Health Hour, with Hibiscus and Imara, just expand it with all the individuals, organizations, so we can co-create a survivor-centered programs that are deeply rooted in cultural, historical, and social context of the communities that we serve. And I'm very, very grateful that we all tackled all of those types of the many facets of response to GBV, historical, right, colonization, patriarchy, et cetera, because at the heart of it, when we listen to each other, when we learn from one another, and when we work together, we make progress. So yeah.
Thank you, Alia. That is very comforting to just know. And I wanted to reassure everyone here that people are working behind you, for you, and with you. And I think that's just very, very powerful. So thank you, everyone, for sharing that. Now, before we go to our Q&A, again, you can leave your questions in the Q&A box here, or later on, we will be flashing. If you'd rather ask your question anonymously, we'll be flashing a QR code via Mentimeter where you can send in your questions. Okay. But before that, as we close, I wanted to go around again and ask each and every one of our panelists, what is one key insight or action? Although we did touch upon this already, but what is one key insight or action you believe can transform mental health support for GBV survivors in India and also in Filipino communities? I will start with Ariane.
With mine, I would love to start with the healing begins with me, with each and every one of us, because um when we be reminded of our own worth and power as a woman, then we also can be the light, so and also give hope to others. So yeah, and even though you are still a work in progress, you're still healing, you can know that you're not alone in this, and that many beautiful individuals can also see that beauty inside of you, and that will also support you in this journey. So yeah, let's reclaim our own personal worth, and also um, establish a an open-minded, survivor-led, supportive community and trauma-informed care approach, also a holistic one, so that we all together lift each other up and be the persons that also God wants us to be. wants us to be. So yeah.
Thank you, Ariane. And Rosika?
I think if uh, more people come together to advocate for stronger systems, more empathetic service providers, especially in the mental health sector, it would really create a ripple effect of change. Strengthening these systems and ensuring compassionate support can prevent further abuse and trauma, and it would reduce impunity and hold perpetrators accountable as well. I also would encourage everyone to engage in self reflection. Take a moment whenever possible to ask yourself, am I being socially responsible towards survivors and society at large? If not, what is holding me back? How can I address those challenges or fears that I'm facing? What steps can I take to grow and become a better person each day? I think if each one of us is committed to becoming more socially responsible, um, imagine the collective impact we could create, right? So be kind and inspire others to do the same.
Thank you so much, Rosika, for that message. Well, we'll go to Doc Pauline now.
Thank you. What I would like to share last is um, to interact with an open heart, whether speaking or listening, to do our best, or at least I do my best to not judge. When there is non judgment and there is unconditional love felt by the other person, it actually simply opens them. And so they can share without judgment and simply speak or listen. And that is what I would like to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc Pauline. Ali?
Um, so we've talked about the many facets of um, how we respond to GBV, and a lot of it are cultural, right? How we how we face them. Like we also talked about economic, cultural barriers and stuff like that. I think more than, everyone is right in terms of like we have to care for ourselves. Obviously, we have to think of ourselves. We have to make sure that we are safe. We feel empowered. But also, I think it's important that we um, make our governments accountable. Um, for this, that's also an actionable solution for us, because as an organization, as a nonprofit organization, of course we can do what we can in our power to give the resources that you need, but we also have to call on our governments to provide these resources for the people. We cannot just do it alone, and we've mentioned this so much, right? We are not in an individualistic society. We love community, we thrive in community. And so we have to think about the community. And how do we think about the community? We ask our government to be accountable. We ask the government to take care of us. We also want to, ask them, and obviously we ask our nonprofit organizations too, that we incorporate mental health support to all of our survivor services. Sometimes mental health support is, or mental health is an afterthought, and it's not the core part of the solutions to GBV, right? This means ensuring that trauma-informed care is accessible, affordable, and culturally sensitive in both India and the Philippines, and globally, right? And that's where I ask the government to also help us, help the community, help nonprofit organizations to make these services accessible and affordable to those that who need it. Because real healing doesn't happen in isolation. I want to just put a pin on that. Um, we have to obviously ask help. We shouldn't be afraid to ask help. Call our friends, call our family, but also check in on our friends and check in on our families. I think that's also important, because when survivors feel seen, supported, and safe, that's where we thrive. That's where we make change.
Thank you so much, Ali. Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what something that Rasika talked about earlier, which is that's definitely one thing that helped me throughout my journey as a GBV survivor was to again realize that I am not my thoughts and I am the observer of my thoughts, and that just means that again, as I mentioned earlier, we're able to rebuild and reinvent ourselves all the time because we can observe. Ourselves and really reflect on what we can do to help ourselves. But as Ali mentioned, we cannot just really simply do that in isolation. But community is very, very important while, I guess, waiting for progress from government. So hopefully that happens soon. But at this point, we will go to our Q&A. It's so funny. Scrap the Mentimeter. You can ask questions anonymously. I did not know that. You can ask questions anonymously here on Zoom. So, hey, send in your questions. But we have our first one, which I just wanted to repeat just in case anyone else, Akshaya and Ariane already responded to this question. But if anyone else wants to add on to this, okay. So Michelle says, thank you for all your contributions so far. Pauline, thank you for vulnerably sharing your lived experience. It's truly amazing to see efforts that help victims of GBV regain self belief, trust, and empowerment. She asks, are there organizations in the Philippines or India that specifically focus on supporting men in unlearning harmful beliefs and transforming their mindsets, and how can men take responsibility for their collective actions and support each other in redefining masculinity? I love that. And as a society, how can we better hold men and the systems of patriarchy and caste accountable? Anyone want to answer? I love how you mentioned, Michelle, redefining masculinity. Because I think that's where we're stuck, right? By Ali, yeah.
Yeah, I love that Akshay had already, you know, answered this, and also Aryan mentioned menopause violence everywhere. That's in the Philippines, and I um, also want to just share too that there is an organization. It's an international organization called Men Engaged Alliance. They tackle patriarchy, also in gender-based violence, and so I feel you would everyone who's interested in learning more about how men can respond to gender-based violence, even if they're not the victims of gender-based violence, I believe it'll be very, very helpful. You can go on their website. We've worked with them before, and that's why I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to let people know about them. It's called, like I said, Men Engaged Alliance. Their website is menengage.org. So hopefully that helps and that answers Michelle's question.
Yeah, and Ariel actually also shared the Move Philippines Men Opposed to Violence Everywhere. So if you want to check that out as well, it is a group of men committed to actively eliminating all forms of violence against women. So that's great to hear. Rasika?
We also have in India Men Against Violence and Abuse, also called MABA. I'm reading it from their site actually. They have pioneered efforts in India to engage boys and men to address issues of gender inequality and discrimination and help prevent GBV against women. So that is another good organization.
I'm so happy to hear, right, that there are organizations like this all over the world. So, yeah, if you want to check that out, you can go ahead and do that. And next we have this is from Sarisha. So, in Indian context, so Rasika, this is for you. What signs help us identify that a person is experiencing GBV, and how do we initiate a conversation with them regarding the same as an observer?
That's a great question. So I guess there are more short-term and long-term reactions that survivors of GBV generally have while they're experiencing violence or post-violent situation. The more short-term reactions can be anything from, you know, uh, uh, triggers, that they experience if something reminds them of that event. And the more long-term reactions can be, signs like depression, panic attacks, anxiety, isolation, excluding themselves from group settings, talking less, you will see a drastic change in their personality, if they are going through something um, traumatizing, or if they are experiencing trauma. If it is, if they are experiencing physical or sexual abuse, you can look out for physical signs of harm like bruises, or if they're wearing excessive makeup suddenly, if they're wearing scarves or hats. These are also potential signs of abuse, and if they're doing that very suddenly, and if it's not part of their general appearance or demeanor, then it could probably be abuse. How to engage in a conversation with them? I would never suggest, go directly ask them, is something going on? That could be very triggering. Unfortunately, there comes a lot of shame and self-blame when survivors experience violence. They don't know what they're going through. It's difficult to voice out. It's difficult to explain those feelings and thought processes to someone else. So try to get close to them in a non-intrusive way. I would say avoid physical contact like hugging, or do it with consent if you feel like it is necessary. Have just sort of go into their circle in a non challenging way, where they are not put in a spot, and then start having those conversations of, is everything okay, is there anything I can do to help you, or just let them know that you are there, if you are able to be there for them. If you feel like in that moment you aren't, you yourself are going through something, it's always important to let them know that there are other resources for help. Let them know that you can delegate that work, or that experience of being there for them to someone else. Those kind of things are also important for survivors to know. I think clear communication is key for any survivor and interaction with any survivor. So yeah, those are a few things that I would recommend.
Thank you so much for answering that, Rasika. I think that is a very tricky thing, right? How do we initiate a conversation, especially for people who haven't been through the same thing, and also those who aren't trauma informed, like we're scared of even causing more harm. So those are really great pieces of advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Do it gently, right? Is how it's supposed to be. Next, we have a question from Nikki. Anyone can answer again. She asks, how do you draw the line between love, protection, and ending the cycle of violence? Who wants to answer first? Love, protection, and ending the cycle of violence. I'm assuming this is in the context of family, or, well, domestic relationships as well, I guess, right?
I think
Ali.
let me it's so hard, right, to set that boundary. Especially like in our context, in the Asian context as well. Like it's so hard, especially in like families. How do you s- how do you say stop? How do you say how do you even um remove yourself from that situation? It's so tough. Like I understand completely if that's such a hard thing to do. Um Acknowledge that love is there, acknowledge that you are loved, acknowledge that you love that person. But at the same time, acknowledge that love does not include enabling. I think that's very important to um, think about, is that, is my love enabling this person? And so we, from there, you set that boundary of, I love you, but this is not right and this is not serving me. I know it's going to be a cliche, but um, who said, like, on Netflix, if it's not serving you, if it's not making you spark joy, you have to let them go.
Marie
It's
Kondo.
Mary Kondo. It's such a cliche thing, but it is true. I know it's such a hard thing to do. It's such a, Some people are like, no, I have to hold on to this. Maybe they will change. But if it does not serve you anymore, you have to let them go and understand that that does not mean you're abandoning them, but it means that you want to stop that cycle of abuse.
Thank you, Ali. Doc Pauline?
Yes, I really simply want to share that to be able to delineate those lines and boundaries, first is to know where you are. Like, where am I right now? Who am I? My name is, I am at this date, in this location, in this space, and I am safe now. Because when I am in that space of safety, I am able to know this is okay, this is not okay. This is my boundary, this is your boundary. And what I learned is it's like when there's a line and people don't know where your line is because I have not expressed it, then they don't know when they're hurting me or when they're already stamping upon something that is not okay with me. So now I'm learning how to express to people that I love, whether it's friends, co-workers, students, clients, this is okay for me. This is not okay for me. And them, I encourage them as well to find out what is the safety and space that is okay for them and what is the behavior that is acceptable and not acceptable. Because when it is clear before the relationship begins, then it is easier for the others to respect because we have different boundaries. For some, this is okay. This is not okay. In another culture, this is okay. This is not okay. In another religion, this is okay. This is not okay. So by us getting to know what is okay for us and then expressing that and then teaching others what is okay, what is not okay, then there is a lot of stepping on and hurting that is prevented because it is clear from the beginning. It's harder when you're already in the process because then I thought it was okay before because you never said anything. You just let me keep doing this and doing that. But then I didn't know. So I just say, I didn't know before. I thought it was okay with me, but I realize now it is not. So may I share with you what is okay with me? I would also like to know what is okay with you and what is not okay. So that with that respect and with that acknowledgement, I don't have to believe the same way or have the same boundary as the other, but simply to know what is mine, what is theirs, and to respect each other in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Pauline. I love that. And yeah, one thing that I learned is love is not enough, right? Like in terms of family, sometimes it's hard because utang na loob is there, at least here in the Philippines, right? And in romantic relationships, usually we get stuck in thinking that I can fix him or her. Um, but yeah, we love is not enough. Sometimes we just have to put ourselves first. And as Doc Pauline and Ali mentioned, boundaries are very important to learn, but it takes time. So, but I'm sure we'll all get there. We have an anonymous question now. Uh, this is a wonderful conversation. There are abuses on children. Are there support groups also for parents who are abused too? And inflictions that come from children in old age, they're also losing their identity because of their experiences. Anyone can answer. Support groups for parents, specifically, who are also abused. Ariane, would you be able to suggest anything?
All right. Here in the Philippines, we have like a desk in every local government unit, in every barangay communities, a violence against women and children. But there are specific if there are specific cases for the elderly, like I believe there are the government also has a social worker that can help for this here in the Philippines. I think like what we call the the DSWD's office, Department of Social Welfare and Development Office for Senior Citizens Affairs, also Coalition of Services for the Elderly, and the Tulay, the support for parents who are parents of troubled youths, or there are toxic parent-child dynamics because of disrespect, emotional manipulation, and abuse from children. Oh, also, there are also different like churches or faith-based organizations that also support um, parents who are victims of abuse from their children. Yeah.
Thank you, Arian. Rasika, I would like to ask if this is also an issue there in India, like children inflicting harm on parents or like inflicting abuse on parents. And are there resources?
Um, uh, that's a very relevant and great question. I've unfortunately had more cases of parents inflicting abuse on their child. I very recently had a minor come to me, reach out. She was neurodivergent, and her parents were abusing her as a result. I have not seen the other way around, where the child is the abuser and the parents are being abused. Unfortunately, in India, there are child helplines, but again, like I mentioned earlier, are half the time inactive. They don't respond. And even support groups for parents are very, very limited in India. That is definitely, there may be here and there, but they are not as popular or as well known throughout the country, or even in my city for that matter. So there definitely needs to be, there's so much scope for more services to come up, more support groups to come up, and hopefully it does in the near future, and I get to know of them for sure. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Asika. I was just curious also when it comes to that. But yeah, I feel like also in the Philippines, there are more cases, right, of children being abused by parents. But the reality is, it also still happens that there are children that abuse their parents. Okay, we're down to our last two questions for today. We have an anonymous question. I think this goes to this is from Filipino context. All right, so Filipino society is heavily intertwined with Catholic faith. So, does the conservative views of women in this religion have any effect on the presence of GBV in the Philippines? And how can this be addressed in a manner that does not downplay the importance of Catholicism in the Philippines? Wow, great question. Okay, so anyone can answer?
Yes, I would
Ali.
love to answer. Yes. I was just talking about this in the first round. Yes, the conservative views of women in Catholicism contribute to the persistence of GBV. In the Philippines, there is this traditional gender roles. We've talked about this. There's women stay in the kitchen. Women are not be seen. Women should not be seen or heard. Right. There's also this discouragement of divorce. And also emphasizing female submission and endurance in abusive situations. These are what prevent survivors from seeking justice or leaving violent environments. Especially the divorce, right? It's such a huge topic in the Philippines of divorce not being it's still like it, we don't have divorce. I believe the Philippines is the only country. I think I've read somewhere that the Philippines is the only country that does not have divorce. And I think to me that is such a um it's it just tampers down women who wants to be empowered and who wants to leave their abusive situations. To address downplaying the Catholicism's importance, advocacy efforts should be highlighted. We should highlight Catholic teachings, right? Compassion, justice. I think we forget that. We read the Bible so much, but we sometimes forget the actual teachings of the Bible. And dignity for all individuals. Engaging progressive Catholic leaders as well. I think that's important. We should talk to leaders of the Catholic Church. I'm sure there are a lot of Catholic leaders who are progressive. I know one of the things that I love about our current Pope right now, it's because he's very progressive. He does not exclude anyone from the conversation. He loves everyone, and that's basically the teaching, right, of the Bible. Um, we should emphasize the church's roles in protecting the vulnerable. That's also one thing that the Bible is very is one of the teachings of the Bible, and framing GBV prevention as a moral and ethical duty that can help bridge the gap between faith and human rights. So working with faith-based organizations, Ariane had mentioned it, working with faith-based organizations to promote gender sensitivity, alongside religious teachings, it can create a more inclusive and survivor-centered approach.
Thank you, Ali. Does Ariane or Dr. Pauline want to add on to that for Mental Health Hour Manila, please? Okay. All right. We'll move on to our last question for now. Okay. Michelle says, I work for Diversity Council Asia and we focus on workplaces, diversity inclusion. We believe workplaces have a responsibility to support employees experiencing GBV and or stopping perpetrators. But I'm curious to know your opinion on if you had a wish list, what is the workplace responsibility to employees experiencing GBV? What could this look like? Ooh. Great questions that we're getting. It's really making me think. Okay, Ali.
It's such a great question, and I work in tech, right? And so
Oh, yeah.
I,
Okay.
I work in tech. My day job is in tech company, and so I have a ton of wish lists. I'm in operations,
Mhm.
I'm in HR. I have a ton of wish lists. One of the things that I really want is the accessibility of mental health to or gender-based violence resources to people being accessible without charge or um, without insurance, right? I think that's one of the things here in the United States. You have to have insurance in order to afford this. I wish that there's an automatic resource accessible to gender-based violence survivors, and also um, the the sensitivity of managers. In my experiences, direct supervisors, managers, they go through like this sexual harassment training that's specifically for managers. Um, but they don't know how to respond to them. And so I wish there was more in depth on how to respond to gender-based violence or to an employee when they come to them with with problems like that. I think that's lastly, I'm so sorry, but lastly, I think it's the protection of whistleblowers. That's one of the things, more protection. There's already in the United States, there's already um, um, a protection to whistleblowers, but sometimes, that does not stop there, right? And so more protection to whistleblowers. I would suggest, like, I don't know what it is in the Philippines, or like I've never worked in the Philippines, so I don't necessarily know how it is, but I hope that there is that safety net for those who come out with stories like that.
Thank you, Ali. This actually made me think, and I was thinking the context of Filipino, in the corporate setting in the Philippines, at least. I can imagine people saying, it's none of your business, right? Like you're not supposed to have to
Yes.
do anything with this, right?
Can I
So yeah, go ahead, Ali.
Sorry, can I just say, I've worked before in a company um, that I was talking to the manager, and they said, why do they have to tell me about their experiences at home in terms of like abuse, their abuse? And I thought that's incredibly naive, incredibly insensitive, because at the end of the day, whatever they experience at home, it continues to the workplace. And in the workplace, it affects their productivity, how they appear at work, how they talk to people. And so I think that's one of the things that they have to be aware of, is like, I'm employing you because I expect you to do this job, right? I know that sounds crazy, but that's, the whole thing of employment is that you are expected to do a certain job. Um, if I cannot trust you to do that job, like, then what is happening? How can I help you be more productive at work?
Yeah. And so I think it's very important to just really encourage having that discussion in workplaces. And also, I know that a lot of companies are already doing gender sensitivity workshops, but maybe even GBV workshops or awareness workshops can help, at least to address this. Okay. Rasika?
My wish list would definitely include bystander intervention techniques and a workshop on that. I've noticed I take those workshops as a part of the work I do with my NGO, and I've seen it give great results in terms of prevention of any kind of GBV or anything that falls in the GBV spectrum, from discrimination, bullying to like the more harmful forms of uh, violence, right? So I would definitely recommend uh, advocating for such trainings to happen in the workplace. In India, we have something called the POSH Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace Act. And I would say it involves every workplace having to have a committee of people who assess sexual harassment cases within the workplace. And I would definitely say there are a lot of gaps in the act itself, and the implementation of it involves more gaps. So strengthening those, the act itself, and including all genders in it, and also ensuring that every workplace has a strong committee to assess, who are trauma informed, to assess instances where there is a survivor coming out with their story, and strengthening that would really definitely be a part of my wish list.
Thank you for sharing, Rasika. Yeah, that's something that I think is not being, is not being brought up a lot, but it's very, very important because in corporate settings, usually you're in and out. You just go to work and go home. But it's really something that a workplace can play an important role in. So I hope that that gets addressed. In both the Philippines and in India. Okay, so before we wrap up, thank you so much everyone who sent in their questions. By the way, those were really wonderful questions. Thank you for sharing. But before we end, I did want to ask all of our panelists if you have anything to share about future, aside from your advocacies, of course, future events that you have that our attendees can join, or any other sources that they can take advantage of. I'm opening the floor for you to share. So I guess I'll start with Ariane.
Yes. Thank you, Miss Isa. We're inviting you to our free seminar support group as well this coming month of March. Tomorrow, Saturday, we also have a Facebook Live and live on Zoom. A friend of Dr. Pauline, who is a voice and movement therapy, will give her her workshop at Barangay Santa Cristo, Quezon City, Metro Manila, just behind SM North EDSA. If you're around, freely come. It's at third floor of the Barangay Santa Cristo Hall. And the topic is more on boses babae, boses diwa. So how can we heal from our trauma through voice and movement therapy? And also, I believe Dr. Pauline has movement therapy workshops as well going on right now. And with Mental Health Our Manila, kindly follow our Facebook page and Instagram, because every Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m., we are having a free support group for all, where you can share your struggles and together heal with us and through the support group. We also have a free care support, free one-on-one listening session together with our chaplains, my mental health coaches, and psychologists and psychiatrists. So feel free to message us for any support you needed.
Thank you, Ariane. Doc Pauline, would you like to add on to about anything else?
Yes, aside from the things mentioned by Ariane, we also have in-person and online free movement classes that we do. Some are Tai Chi Cha, Joy Through Movement, which is for healing the soul, heart, mind, and body, and many other different types. So we usually share it and post it either sa Facebook or sa Instagram. Um, I think my name is Dr. Pauline, DOCTORPAULIN, so that they can see. Well, I'm learning how to post. I don't know how to post, so someone will help me to post those free events so that people can join and empower themselves. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Ariane and Doc Pauline. Again, Dr. Pauline on Facebook and Mental Health Hour Manila. So they're very active on there. So yeah, check out their events. And Rasika for Imara.
We definitely have a bunch of events planned. They're still in the process of confirmation, so I can't share them right now, but I would encourage all of you to follow our social media handles. We are very active there, and we will be posting about future events that are going to happen. So the handle on Instagram is imara.foundation. On LinkedIn, you can find us as Imara Survivor Support Foundation if you type that on the search bar. Also, a shout out to Hibiscus Foundation because Akshaya had to leave early. But they do so many events, and they're very, very active on social media as well. I think handle is hibiscus.foundation. So you can look out for, follow our pages, look out for future events because they're definitely going to happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rasika. And yeah, of course, for giving a shout out also to Hibiscus Foundation. Definitely follow them online. There's a lot going on there, and a lot of resources that you can also check out. Ali?
Yes. It's a very, very busy month here at Breaking Science Movement. We started early this month. March is our advocacy month, and so we are stacked with a lot of events. One of we had a live stream with um sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now, but we had the live stream a couple of live streams before. Please check them out on Facebook and on Instagram. Our handle is Breaking Silence MVMT, both on Instagram and Facebook. We have another live stream coming up Monday. It's going to be with Rue Powell. She's the founder of SOSA, sexual abuse. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. So but anyway, she's the founder of SOSA. It's gonna be a very, very interesting conversation about how, about catching predators, about child sex abuse. But also we have an Asian community coffee chats panel coming up this Saturday. Isa will also be moderating, hosting that event, and so many others that you guys can check it out on the link that I'm going to send out right now on the chat. You have all the list of our events coming up. So yes, and follow us on all our social media accounts. We're very active on that as well. Thank you to our community socials team. Um, that's Breaking Silence MVMT, both on Instagram and on Facebook. And yeah, and we are also relaunching our brand at the end of March, which is very excited. You're all invited. We will be sending out a link on social media for that relaunch rebrand. So we're very excited about that as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists again. It's so exciting because there's so many things going on, not only this Women's Month, but also in the coming months as well. So I really hope that you guys can stay updated for that. But I want to thank each and every one of our panelists. Of course, Akshaya isn't here anymore, but Akshaya Aksulan of Hibiscus Foundation joined us earlier. We have also Ariane Alvarez and Doc Pauline Kimson of Mental Health Hour Manila. We we have Rasika Sundaram from Imara Survivor Support Foundation, and of course, Ali Kagalang, who is our executive director at Breaking Silence Movement, and me, Isa, for Breaking Silence Movement as well. I'm so excited to see each and every one of you again very, very soon. But for now, thank you to everyone who joined us for this event. Again, this is a CSW 69 parallel event, navigating trauma, cultural insights into GBV psychological impact of Indian and Filipino women. I hope that we keep the conversation going and that you can follow us online for any updates. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, night,
Thank you,
afternoon.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Salamat po.